I hereby call to order the regular meeting of Ojai Planning Commission for Wednesday, November 15th, in person and teleconference with our good buddy Steve. Okay, so Sherry, you want to do a roll call?
Vice Chair Trent,
Here?
Commissioner Bennett,
Here.
Commissioner Murphy,
Here.
Chair Quillisi.
Here.
Awesome. And Jamie, do you mind leading us in the pledge?
Nope. I mean, no. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Okay, and then we'll look at the agenda. Lucas, any changes to the agenda?
No.
No? Okay, perfect. Okay, and this is our time for public communications for things that are not on the agenda. I don't see any cards, so
Somebody's waving at you.
Oh. We got one. Oh, it's over there. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Oh, I see.
And these, again, these are for items not on the agenda. Okay, perfect. So we got a couple. Oh, okay, cool.
Both from him.
All right. Oh, so we got two from Larry. Oh, I got you for item number 2. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so Larry, if you want to come on up.
Larry Steingold, Ojai resident. I would like to know if the Ojai Unified School District has contacted you about any of their plans for the Chaparral property, and that there is conversation about what they're planning to do so we don't get blindsided. That goes for Community Development Director. Curious. I don't know, can you?
Answer that?
Yeah, a short response is fine, no discussion.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
gotcha,
yes or no,
gotcha.
yes or
Yes.
no would be
This is
good.
the shortest response I can give.
Okay.
No.
Okay, in response to that, okay, I would suggest that you contact them, you don't reach out for them. You contact them, you talk to them, you send emails with follow-up receipts and hand-delivered, and you want to know what's going on, so we don't get a, I don't know, blindsided, fait accompli, whatever, with them going, oh, this is what we're doing, and we need you to do this, and you go, no, or yes, and we have a problem just like 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, where everybody, the public and everybody is up in arms, and everybody's flipping out. So please, somebody reach across, whether it's the city council, the mayor's here, and the city councilor here, or you do something, or do nothing and say, we don't care what you do, we just bring it to us and we'll go from there. But I would suggest you please talk to them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and Leslie.
This is short and sweet, and it's directed to Steve Quillisi. Go Bears.
Very nice, very nice. All right, any other public comment? Nope, okay, so we'll move on to consent items. Meetings of the regular meeting as November 1st. Any commissioners have any changes?
None?
None.
Okay,
I move we accept the minutes.
I second.
all
Vice
right.
Chair Trent, could we do a quick audio check to make sure that we can hear?
Oh, yes, yes. Mr. Quilisi, can we do a quick audio
Yes.
check?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah,
We're good.
okay, we're good. Thank you. Okay. So we got a motion, we got a second. Sherry, can we get a roll call?
Trent,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Quillisi.
Yes.
All right. So on to discussion item, design review permit, DRP 23008, regarding the Cabrillo Vista Affordable Housing Project. This is continued from November 1st. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, we do.
Awesome.
So, Good evening. My name is Lucas Seibert. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Ojai. Before you tonight is an item that was continued from the November 1st meeting. At that meeting, there was quite a robust discussion, lots of questions, and a lot of Q&A that came with the applicant as well as staff and the community as well. What we are here to talk about tonight is really kind of boiled down to what was provided in the staff report, as well as identifying what's really not going to be discussed tonight, which, if you all recall, October 1st, we really talked about the housing laws that are a part of this and are really a part of any sort of housing project moving forward that's affordable, that has affordable components. That's not being discussed tonight. That's not being hashed out. That was discussed on October 1st. I invite anybody that's watching on Zoom or in TV land or that's here tonight that's interested in that to tune in to the October 1st Planning Commission meeting, because there's a lot of discussion and a lot of good information. November 1st, as I had said before, the Planning Commission discussed the whole project and asked for clarifying questions be brought forward at the next meeting, and that's what we're here tonight for. It's been boiled down to really 5 points, and I'm going to go through those fairly quickly. And then at the very end, there are some conditions as I've gone through them again, and I know that the applicant has raised some concerns in regards to those, and staff's gone back and taken a look at those conditions, and we have some comments and some requested revisions to the conditions of approval as well. So
Perfect.
with that, like I said before, there was really 5 points that we got out of the meeting on the 1st, and the first one was kind of the commission had asked for a rough estimate for a sidewalk stretching from the subject site, which is 318, 320 Bryant Street up to Ojai Avenue. Now that was a request of the commission, not necessarily something that came from the audience. It's about 900 linear feet. And what that equates to in terms of cost or estimated cost, and mind you, it's a rough estimate, given that there are lots of impediments within the public right-of-way that would have to be worked out within a timeline, which is unknown. It's about $300,000. And that's probably on the low end, probably, just because of all of the impediments that we're looking at along Bryant Street. And, you know, in reviewing that, staff reviewed, and then really kind of in looking at that is recommending against imposing any sort of conditions that revolve around that particular piece. So I just want to make that known.
Mm-hmm.
The second of the 5 points is the local workforce preference for occupancy for the new affordable or proposed rental units. And that really gets down to a Senate bill referred to as Senate Bill 649. Now, what's interesting is, so this Senate bill supports local tenant preference for lower income households subject to displacement risks within affordable housing projects. The city council just took this up last night, at last night's meeting, and voted 5-0 to move forward with an ordinance on local tenant preference policy, which would provide preference to those within the city, sphere of influence, area of interest. That's just kind of the higher level. I'm not going to necessarily get into the details because that's still being worked out through council. That's the second piece. The third is a third of 5 is an increase in the number of bicycle racks from 30, which was really what was proposed and brought forward for consideration by this body, by the applicant. That 30 has grown into a much larger number, and I know that the applicant has a PowerPoint presentation. Within that PowerPoint presentation is also a site plan that kind of lays out what that looks like. There is some give and take anytime that you're looking at a site that's pretty well proposed in terms of everything kind of fitting within its respective box. There's some takeaways. That takeaway in this case, and they'll show you a site plan and talk about it more, is the loss of 2 parking spaces. Now, at the surface, the loss of 2 parking spaces would still meet our standards. It's not something where they would now be under the curve in terms of parking. Their requirement, I think, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 72 parking spaces. That's what they would be held to. they're still well above that at going from 95 to 93.
Right.
So that's the third one. The fourth one is to consider an additional concession for affordable housing within the mixed kind of the housing mix that we have within our code. And that's really specific to section 10-2.704, subset G1. Within that, it has this housing mix provision of 15% low income, 15% very low income, and then 5% moderate income. So they're providing the minimum thresholds of the 15 and 15, just not the 5. So the 5 is what they're asking for the concession on. Within that provision, it still has an exception to the objective requirement, which then must or may be granted at the sole discretion of City Council. So it still goes to City Council for further discussion and consideration. And then the fifth piece is to return with an explanation for compliance with MS4. And I believe that the applicant has a representative, an engineer here, to talk through that and to kind of give you the brass tacks of what they're proposing. I've given a very simple, very straightforward analysis that include or kind of overview, which talks about cisterns and subterranean storage tanks.
Okay.
I'll let the engineer kind of talk through that a little bit more. They discussed it and kind of explained it to me in layman's terms, and it made complete sense.
Okay.
Once again, I'm gonna let the engineer talk through that. But the report was included.
Okay.
I had mentioned earlier, so the last point, we've talked about the 5.
Mm-hmm.
I've mentioned the 5. The last point there's 3 conditions or 3 points to 3 conditions that I wanted to draw attention to the Planning Commission. The first one is condition number 12. So condition number 12,
This is on attachment A?
which is attachment A, states, and it's the DRP review for 1 year. So it states within 1 year of a design review permit approval for the project site shall be exercised, yada, 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 right?
Mhm.
That's a standard condition that we have for any DRP approval. This project is not any other this isn't necessarily like an
typical
addition
design.
or commercial. This is an affordable housing project, which we're using or applying different rules and regulations as we've talked about on October 1st.
Mm-hmm.
One of those talks about the applicant, property owner, having a 3.5 year window in which to develop and to go through the process. Meaning once it's approved, then they've got kind of a shot clock of 3.5 years
Mm-hmm.
to get it taken care of. What I'm asking for, and probably in requesting, and I know the applicant will talk about this more, is to revise that condition. And I want to read into the record the recommendation from staff. So instead it would say within 3.5 years of the design review permit DRP 23-008 approval for project site, the permit shall be exercised in compliance with Title 10, Chapter 2, Article 32, time limits and extensions of the Ojai Municipal Code, or the permit shall be deemed void unless such approval is extended by the Commission or Council for good cause, either before or after the expiration of such time limit. Now I'm adding in a slight caveat here, which says before or after each anniversary of the DRP 23-008 approval, the property owner shall provide an update in written form to the Community Development Department regarding status of the project site. And such update shall be forwarded to the Planning Commission and City Council. So really what it is a check-in piece every year. So we're still getting that annual
Okay.
check-in, but it's
Got
a
it.
3.5 year bit versus the 1.
Okay.
So that's the first condition. The second was an error really on staff's part, my part. Looking at the public art requirements, there's 2 pieces or 2 conditions that reference public art and the requirements for such. This project does not require public art. It is exempt. So condition number 24D and condition number 31 need to be stricken from the record.
Okay, 24D. And what was the other one?
It was 24D and 31.
31. Oh, include address number for the project site? Oh, 31, sorry. 31? Oh, that part, public work. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it talks about the 300,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The last one that I want to reference is a procedural piece, and it's 24E. It's always interesting when you start reading through the conditions again, you start noticing little nuances that really need to be addressed. So 24E talks about providing a final lighting plan, which includes a photometric analysis and details of supporting compliance, which is 10.2.16.5. At the end, it identifies review and approval is to be done by the Planning Commission. What I'm recommending instead, that say the Community Development Director or his or her designee.
Okay.
And with that, staff is recommending that this resolution be approved and then this project be forwarded to City Council.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Now, the applicant, like we did before, I'd prefer that the applicant give a presentation
Yeah.
before we go into the
Yeah, then
Q&A
we'll-
piece. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then we can go into questions, right? Look at Q&A staff and, okay, yeah, gotcha.
Absolutely. Yeah, that'll be the next step.
Perfect.
I'll hold up on.
I have a question for staff.
Oh, we're gonna have a presentation by the applicant first, and then we can
Okay.
go into.
Yep,
Yeah.
just like before, Chair Quillisi.
Great.
Okay, you're all set.
He's just pulling up.
Oh,
the-
he's pulling it
yeah.
up. I'm sorry.
That's okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us back. Victoria Brady from Cabrillo. I'm not going to really go over the highlights. I think you know the project, the
Mhm.
50-unit project in the city of Ojai. I'm going to invite our architect up here. He's going to go over the next couple of slides, talking about the bike parking and so on. Pablo?
Good evening, Pablo Romero, architect for the project. Yes, so we took your request for addressing the bike parking. And slide, please. So what we're basically doing is expanding what we have now under the, I don't know if you can read number 5, it's in the lower left corner of the, there you go. So that number 5 is pointing out to the biking parking. Whereas before it was basically limited to the edge of the parking body
Mm-hmm.
that's perpendicular to it. We extended it, by decreasing by eliminating 2 vehicular parking stalls. So that first we increased the footprint of the bike parking, and additionally we're recommending a bike rack system that goes vertical. So we are also increasing the capacity, and we're by virtue of doing these 2 things, we'll be reaching 77 bike parking. The capacity to 77. So that is our proposal here. Of course, as it was explained by Lucas a few minutes ago, this is in detriment of the parking capacity, of vehicular parking capacity. Still, we're at 93 parking stalls, so it's still a decent amount.
And you mentioned vertical. How does that work?
So instead of parking it just horizontal, you mount it and you have 2 different levels of the bikes to allow for, an intertwined area of the handles, so you can pack them a little bit more. That's
Okay,
pretty much the idea.
interesting. Okay.
Slide, please. And, well, the project data, as described, final parking stalls, we're reducing the standard spaces from 72 that we had into 70. The rest of the parking stalls do not get impacted. New total revised number would be 93. And as mentioned, it comes down to 77 parking spaces for bicycles. There was one other request that, although it didn't make it here, we just want to point out to with the next slide, please. One of the comments that we received were referencing the potential connection or a potential pedestrian connection with Whispering Oaks. So we still wanted to analyze this, and we brought back, this is basically an enlarged section. On the left side would be the east, actually. This is Whispering Oak Drive. You see how we've impacted the grade, the dashed line, the dotted line that's running across the elevation, that's the existing grade of our property, but we're going down for a total of 7 feet 7 differential between Whispering Oaks Drive and our new grade elevation. This varies, of course, and there are some portions that are probably 6'8" or something like that, but it can be as critical as this. So a potential connection, of course, is practically impossible, especially in terms of ADA compliance, right? Creating a ramp to accommodate a change in elevation of 7 feet 7, that's a majestic thing to do, if it's going to be ADA compliant, and of course it would have to be. Otherwise, there's no point for making this connection, right? So we just wanted to, take this back here and show you that we did explore it. It's really, that's pretty much the graphic that explains the challenge that it would pose here.
Could I ask, is there an exit to the bike trail that people could use and then come into Whispering Oaks? Does Whispering Oaks have an entrance to the bike trail?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
No? Too bad. That would have helped.
Yes.
Okay, so no connection to Whispering Oaks at all.
No connection, yes.
Does it stop at around Condor storage there? I think
so.
the bike path does. So actually,
Okay.
people will be able to take the bike path, jog around Condor, and then take the entrance, the Bryant Drive entrance into the area
That's correct. That would be the shortest route, yes.
from the street. Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't that bike path expected to be extended all the way out to Soul Park?
There's been talk about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been anything more than talk.
Because if that were to happen, that would
Yeah,
mean that we could
yeah.
make a good path
Right.
from Whispering Oaks to this.
I have a question. We had asked also, I believe, that we consider, or you consider, charging stations for electric bikes, and with electric bikes becoming more and more evident on the streets of Ojai, I was wondering if you were able to consider that.
The provisions could be provided for electrical bike parking at this locations, at least for some of the bikes, yes. That will have to be addressed during construction documents, but the provisions can be provided. It is viable, for sure.
And I think the other part of that is that I don't know if there are any statistics to support it, but I do believe that low-income residents have a higher utilization of bicycles than lower income because it becomes an automobile substitute. And so is there any room for expansion of this should it get the 77 slots or whatever there are, should they all be used up quickly?
Well, right now as it is, we're providing a little bit over 1.5 bikes per household, right? Which is a significant amount of bikes. Having said that, if really, that would be more of an operations question, but definitely the exercise that we just did could be replicated again in the future. And I mean, it would be under the understanding that at that point, more people are using a bike as a main means of transportation, therefore reducing the need for vehicle, right? If that is a logic, 5 years from now or what have you, then the reduction of a couple more parking stalls would not be that's something that could be brought back before this body or, or addressed properly, right? But we could replicate the exercise we just performed pretty much. And I think the formula is there, and it's going to be a balance, right? Of course, as we impact vehicles, we need to be aware of that. But if, again, conditions change down the lane, there is a solution for sure.
Thank you.
And just a quick question while you're here. And maybe you don't know the answer to this, but would you, I know the area in general there's very little infrastructure built there. It's, there's no sidewalks, there's no lighting. It's not built for kind of residential neighborhoods. So would you guys be open to help with some of that infrastructure outside of just the plan that you have? I know we talked about sidewalk going all the way from the location all the way up to Ojai Avenue, which might be cost prohibitive, but have we looked at maybe doing a sidewalk to the bike path or potential lighting around the bike path? Because if we're talking about people using bikes a lot, it gets real dark. I mean, it's like pitch dark down there right now. So having people on that path at this time of day or time of night would be hard.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's more of a developer question.
Honestly, it's usually cost prohibitive. Affordable housing in general is pretty cost prohibitive, to be honest. So that adding on those additional, we'd be more than happy to work with the city on looking at CDBG grants through the county that would help the city pay for those infrastructure improvements. It's something that we do a lot on our existing portfolio where we apply for CDBG grants to improve and so on. But putting it on this particular project does make it cost prohibitive.
Yeah, okay.
What does CBT stand for?
CBG.
CDBG, it's a Community Development Block Grant.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Grant, all right.
Heard from a county source, they do have substantial amount of funds that they need to get out of the door quickly, so
Right.
it's definitely open for opportunity.
And I know the last discussion, we were talking about emergency exits, because I believe we have that in our SPL overlay that, we should have 2 exits, one for primary access and then one potentially for emergency purposes. And I think there was talks about should or shall or whatever. So has there been any thought about that? I know you were looking at maybe opening up the Condor and talking to them about creating some sort of access.
So, I mean, as you see, obviously, from the shall portion of the Whispering Oaks,
Yeah, that's not possible on that side.
that's not feasible, right?
Yeah.
We have not spoken with the storage facility yet to see what access they could provide, but it's definitely on our radar to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this last time, but just, if there is a fire in the area and everybody's got to get out at the same time,
Absolutely.
it's going to be very difficult with that one exit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understood, yeah. No, so we're definitely going to be talking with them more.
Okay,
Keep you updated.
okay, thank you.
Robert, did you want to? Our engineer's going to go through all the
Perfect.
technical.
Yeah,
Before we talk about storm, I'm sorry, Commission, my name's Robert Winslow. I'm Principal Engineer with Civil Design Studio, civil engineer on the project. On the subject of fire access, the project as designed does meet Ventura County standards. So it's not a one-way in, out drive. It's a 24-foot wide drive with 2 drive aisles, so 2 vehicles could pass each other. Fire truck coming in, cars going out. Also, all of the drive aisles within the project meet the minimum radii for fire truck access. So there is an internal loop within the project too. It's
Right.
not a dead end.
right, I saw
I want
that.
to point that out. So.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I think the next slide is my first one. Yeah. So before we talk about the project in specific, I want to go over a little bit the requirement. The NPDES requirements, the Ventura County MS4 permit requirements, are intended to help projects introduce a natural hydrologic process whereby rainwater soaks back into the ground instead of being sent into gutters and out to the streams and eventually out to the ocean. So what's difficult with that process with a project like this is that we don't have permeable soils. There's no infiltration. And the permit leaves very few off-ramps for ways to achieve compliance with that permit if you cannot infiltrate or percolate that water. One of them is to use biofiltration, which requires a pretty large footprint because you have to clean 1.5 times the water you would normally clean. if you're going to use that option. And as you can see with the previous site plan that was up, we don't have room for that kind of feature, and it reduces the density of the project, which is the opposite of the point of doing low-income housing. And so what we've incorporated in order to comply with the MS4 permit is what Lucas correctly dubbed as new old technology, which is rain cisterns. So the top picture of the slide here is a condensed version of what's basically a 72-inch, 72-inch pipes that all of the stormwater from the project is directed towards. Your roof leaders, your parking lot water, everything goes into this system where it's captured. It'll be about 29,000 gallons. That's about a quarter of the annual landscape irrigation demand. That water is filtered before it goes in so that it doesn't clog up the irrigation pumps, and then it's used to supplement or replace the irrigation water for the project with a subsurface drip system. So in a rainy year, the irrigation meter on this project would be little utilized. In a drier year, you would still, even with just what's happening tonight, even just fog that's rolling off and into the roof gutters and down in the system, there's always water in there that is available. So the compliance with the MS4 permit is a cistern system, a tank with a pump assembly. The pump goes to the irrigation system. We reuse that water to irrigate the site. When that system fills up, we'd be looking at the picture on the bottom, which is a storage system so that the overflow water can enter the storage system and have a chance to percolate, because even though we have poor percolation, poor infiltration rates, there are some infiltration rates. So we give it that opportunity before it ultimately is let go into the historic flow path, which is down the driveway at the terminus of the driveway at Bryant Street. That said, our requirement is that in all storms, give or take from the 2-year storm to the 100-year storm, that peak flow, as we call it, is reduced after we develop from what it was before we're developed. So if we're, let's say, letting 2 feet per second of water go before the site develops, as it sits right now, after we develop, we can only let 2 feet per second or less go, and we hold that water back in one of these systems. I think there's one more slide. Yeah, so this explains the rainwater harvesting system. You've got your collection in the parking lots. It goes to the cistern underground through a pretreatment device, cistern underground. And then we would be using the irrigation option, not the cooling or toilet flushing, but we would be just using the irrigation option for the project. So I'm available if you have any questions.
Yeah, you, just a quick question. You mentioned like a 200-year storm, or is that right?
It's, so what we analyze is the 2 through the 100-year storm.
Through 100-year storm,
Yeah,
okay,
and
gotcha.
just to put some context into that, I don't know at what point 100 years ago someone introduced the term year to the reoccurrence event, but it really has nothing to do with year. 100-year storm is a storm that there's a 1 in 100% chance of happening every time it rains. So that's a big storm.
Yeah.
So what we look to size these systems for is more around the 95th percentile storm, which is, you know, say maybe the 5-year storm. That's what these hold. And then everything else goes into the storm drain system, the storage system where it's detained.
Got it.
And would it get to the curb on Bryant by the driveway, or would it have a pipe that would carry the stormwater out to?
Yeah, so there's nothing for us to connect a pipe to. So for a system like this, we would use bubbler technology, which is a euphemism for a catch basin at the end of the driveway that takes water in when the system's not full and lets water out when the system is full. So there'll be one last catch basin at the end of the driveway that's catching the water coming down the driveway. When the system fills up, the water comes out of that lowest point instead of going into that lowest point.
Is there no room to put a channel next to the driveway that the water could
Yeah, there's
be sourced down?
absolutely, we are 100% using it for our ADA compliance, the parking, and the 2 necessary drive aisles. Now, we have, along the mini storage, we have incorporated a bioswale, which is intended to provide some pre-treatment cleaning, and it's pretty effective. But that's the little bit of vegetative space that we have available to us for that kind of work.
Cool. And I believe Chair Quilisi, did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
I had a question on condition 12. We can come back to that.
Okay, all right. All right,
Okay,
thank you, thank you. Staff questions, or do we still have applicant? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, just a couple.
Yeah, no worries.
If you could advance that, Lucas. Yeah, so this is a slide to explain, there was a comment in the last meeting about the Humane Society
yes,
and the
noise.
dogs and
Yeah.
kennels. I don't know exactly where the kennels are. I think they're in the back.
Yeah, I think you're
Yeah,
right.
they're
They're toward the golf course, I
left,
believe.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
bottom
So,
right.
but you can see from these kind of blue bars of the distance from the corner of the subject property to the property line of the Humane Society. And so the closest one is 190 feet away and has the Condor storage building blocking part of it. The building is up on a plinth, and it's about 16 feet high, 17 feet high. So it's a pretty good, basically only the people in the 3-story units should be directly line of sight exposed. And then at the other place, it's 310 feet at the line C. So it's really quite a
Okay.
ways.
Yeah,
And I don't know too much about how far, a dog's bark goes, but pretty far on a quiet night. I know.
yeah,
But just the same, it's not like they are exactly next door.
yeah.
So we just wanted to demonstrate that for you.
Yeah, and I know Whispering Oaks is right there. I know you'd hear it from there.
Yeah, the one thing you can see in this photo, just for fun, is that you can see that there's a 60-foot, the golf course
Yep.
comes up higher.
Yep.
If you're familiar with that. And then the bike trail actually turns into a walking trail, which is what's
Yes.
shown right there.
Yes.
But it's relatively steep if you've been out there. And then it makes a 90-degree turn and goes along Whispering Oaks.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, next slide then, and we'll do it. There's also a question about the solar photovoltaic energy, and it's early for us. I mean, we have shown solar panel locations on the roof, and we counted 307. So there could be more, there could be fewer if we wind up, those are the mini split systems. You can see all those compressors for the mini splits. But yeah, it looks like there's probably enough room for everything up there on the roof. And with 307 panels, just a little bit of math, and this is just preliminary so we can answer the question with you. But frequently people are using 400-watt panels now. It is possible to get a 500-watt panel, but they're really not used commercially yet. So you can get an idea that the annual production is 226,000 kilowatt hours, which is quite a bit. And so if you take that and divide it up and compare it to the utility allowance, which is an actual survey of all electric homes or apartments in the Ventura County area that's done by the Housing Authority periodically, comparing those two things, we can see that we would offset about 73% of the electric demand as an all-electric home. Yeah, so it's pretty significant. And, plus or minus, the efficiency may go up before we get there, and we also may be able to figure out how to get some more panels up there, but right now, that's where we are.
And are you currently working with Edison on that and getting those connections?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's on the list to get started because it takes so long to get a transformer and get the connections made. But I think right now we're okay. The lead time is about 14 months, we're told.
Okay.
So, yeah. But we are beginning to work with some of the solar installers to get their advice about how to work with the roofing system and get this ready to go. Yep.
Okay.
Ready. I think that covers it for us. Where are we at next? Oh, Barbara, of course.
Okay.
Do you want to move it to the next slide? Okay, I think Lucas has already mentioned it, and it came up at the end of the last meeting. We decided to ask for a third concession to eliminate that requirement for the 3 moderate income units in exchange for 33 units that are more, have deeper affordability. So that's just the summary of the 3 concessions. It was 2, now it's 3. I don't think we need to go into them because we talked about them last time. And then I think there's just one more slide. And this is just a reminder in terms of the different laws that impact this project. So just to kind of have that out there. And the Housing Accountability Act, of course, is very important in terms of every single affordable housing development that produces at least 20% of its units for lower income. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Questions for staff? Anyone?
No.
All right. Chair Quilisi, I know you had a question for staff.
Yes, thank you. This is with regard to condition number 12. My understanding from previous considerations of this same condition was that the phrase, "the permit shall be exercised," meant that work had started, whether it was grading or some other part of the construction timeline. And I'm wondering, is the request to change 1 year to 3.5 years based on something other than getting started? Because, like I say, the way I've understood it before was that the 1 year was a limit to get started on the construction activities, usually with grading in a case like this. And there is no requirement for an end date in Title 10, Chapter 2 for exercising the permit, only a start date. And I get the impression that changing 1 year to 3.5 would allow the applicant to hold off starting any activities, grading or otherwise, for 3.5 years. And I don't understand why that would be the request. So that's my question.
So if I can,
Yeah.
I'll answer a portion of it and maybe have Alex chime in and maybe even Barbara or Victoria. So this is not your typical project where you have a private property owner going in the next day and they've already got the funding secured, or they've got it in their savings. Here we're looking at a project that still needs funding through through potentially multiple sources, and they're working on those right now. Some of those more than likely require some of these entitlements to be in hand to ensure that those monies can be then released. So it's not a 1 year process, because it's really dependent on timelines that are out of their control to a certain degree. So that's really the reason for the extension beyond the 1 year, but checking in, doing kind of a check-in every year, recognizing that 3.5 years is really something that's embedded within state law, but then recognizing that we still have I would say to a certain degree, a moral obligation to ensure that they're moving forward and that they've got some assurances that they're working through some of those finances or other aspects. I mean, right now we're talking about the money portion, but it could be other things that are going on that we're not even aware of. So.
Okay, but it does sound like the plan then is not to begin any construction activity within a year.
It could happen. I think the reality is, and I'll have the applicant speak to it, because I think Victoria's going to get up and speak as well. But I think it's just a realization that to move that quickly when you're looking at other sources that are to a certain degree out of their control, a year could happen, but I think 3.5 is a realistic aspect. I mean, working backwards, I think they want to start tomorrow, but they've got
We'd like to.
things that are out of their control.
And so, if I
And
can
so with-
explain, I'm sorry, go ahead.
With a 3.5-year limit on exercising the permit, then we're talking at perhaps 5 years to complete the project, 5.5?
That's a lot more accurate. So the financing structure for many affordable housing deals is tax credits, which is a highly competitive application process for all affordable housing developers in California. Even before you get to that, you have to usually apply for state funding. So as an example, if we apply for state funding, which only comes once a year, that would be, let's say, July. You then wait until December to January of the following year to find out about that award. After that, you then apply for tax credits, which is about another 6-month process to find out if you're awarded. And then 6 months after that, you actually close on your construction financing and break ground. So all of that takes usually 2 years, give or take. And that's if you're successful in your first round of applications because it's so highly competitive.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I had a couple of questions for staff. On attachment A, page 3. 3. On section 3, it outlines our RENA numbers and then it mentions what this project is doing. I just wanted to get clarity. Is this, so what are we saying in here, that this is, it's not necessarily filling the bucket for all of our RENA needs?
I mean, we've got 53 units that we've got to fill.
Right.
It's showing that it's a drawdown.
Right.
So I get to use that through our annual progress report and plug those numbers in to show what our drawdowns are.
Okay. But it's not fulfilling all of
No.
the requirements?
No.
Got it.
No.
Okay, all right. I was just wanted clarity on that one. And then on attachment A, page 4, condition number 8. When it says the applicant shall install public improvements to the satisfaction of the Public Works Director through an encroachment permit with the Public Works Department. What is that? I'm confused on what that actually means. You can
Yeah,
elaborate.
so this body has controlling over any of the private aspects. Along the street in the public right-of-way, that's where our Public Works Department, Public Works Director has control over that. And that really is the area that within the flag portion, that pole portion
Yeah.
of this
Yep.
piece. So it's a fairly small area,
It's that
but it's a
little-
controlling piece.
Yeah, it's that opening.
That Public Works would then be applying the Title VII provisions.
Okay,
And it's through an encroachment permit. That's really the provision.
okay.
It'd be like a zone clearance through planning or a DRP,
Got it.
like what we're looking at tonight.
Okay. All right, so that would be, so they'd have to apply for that and get that.
And the level of review for an encroachment permit does not go to a public hearing. It remains with the Public Works Director
Ministerial.
and the Public Works Department.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And that was it for me. Nothing else? Judy?
Nope.
All right. We can open it up for public comment. I have one speaker card. Larry?
Larry Steingold, resident. I don't have any property on Bryant. I bike on Bryant. I walk on Bryant, and it's a nice project. It's a needed project, but they need a sidewalk. Okay? I'm not a lawyer. I did 40 years of commercial real estate brokerage. Okay, so I've seen what happens in an industrial park where they add residential. They talk about online, Justia, nexus, whatever, whether an essential nexus exists between a legitimate state interest and permit condition. There is no this is a direct cause and relationship. There's no sidewalk there now. There are no children, there's no toddlers, there's no baby carriages, the infirm walking, there's no 24/7, 800 feet in the dark. There's a cause and there's a direct. It's because they're putting their facility there, they're now gonna have up to 249 people walking in the street with all this stuff. All right? So, you know, there's no, they say, oh, no precise mathematical calculate, they don't. The city must make some sort of individual determination that the required dedication is related both in nature and extent to the proposed development's impact. This is essentially the reasonable relationship test. Potentially 249 people, toddlers, infants, tricycles, wheelchairs, walkers, and just people who don't want to walk on the street at night or during the day, my words, with trucks of all shapes and sizes. The proximity of the people, they talk about public transportation, walking, going. Well, here you are. Lawsuits are, we know they're going to be a safety hazard. It's going to happen. Just like dogs bark at 2 a.m. 5 years from now, their tenants will be at the city council going, dogs are barking, we can't sleep. Maybe we need soundproofing, better soundproofing on their windows and stuff. That's the way it is. Okay, we all live with coyotes, so welcome to rural Ojai. They talk about load emissions, new bike racks, we get those. There are gonna be, you know, and I don't wanna talk about the light, okay? I'm more concerned about the sidewalk. I don't live there. I don't need the sidewalk, but these people do, okay? Make it a condition, then they'll go before one judge and you'll go before the same judge and the judge will look at all the reasons and say yes or no and call it a date. It doesn't have to be a big to-do. But let somebody sit there at 3 p.m. and with all these people walking back and forth. They need a sidewalk. And that's the effect and cause, and that's the nexus. I guess that's the new magic word for the year, nexus. There is nexus. I'm not an attorney, but there's reasonable use of this. There's a cost basis. Without them there, we don't need a sidewalk. Their tenants don't need a sidewalk. Would you want your family living there without a sidewalk at 2 p.m. with a toddler? Going
Larry.
back and forth?
Larry.
Please. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry. But the question is, would they? It's not that I understand it costs money. They don't want to pay for it. We don't want to pay for it, because that's what's going to happen. Share in the cost. Go get the grant. Pick up a third of it. Pick the grant for the third. Make a deal. But we need the sidewalk. They need the sidewalk. The kids need the sidewalk. So please,
Okay.
if nothing else,
Thank you, Larry.
make a way.
All right. Looks like we got another public comment. And could we set the timer? We got the timer set? Jerry?
Hello. For the record, my name is Bill Miley. I certainly support this project. The site is perfect. Years ago in 2005, our city put on a ballot a request for citizens to decide whether there should be a 50-unit senior development on that site, those 2 acres. 67% said yes. And then over the last 20 years, there were some ideas to get it done, and then there was no ideas, finally, because Cabrillo found it, and we have what we have today. It's a perfect site. As to what's around it, there's obviously storage on one end, there's a street in the front, there's Adamson's, but there is a huge, dense residential development to its east. There's 100 units of senior housing. 100 units, not 10, not 20, not 30, but 100. Hugely dense. And that should be a show that there definitely is enough residential area there that they ought to get special considerations. The housing element, as I have said before, and you probably well know, says the need for rental affordable housing that's deeded is huge. That half, almost half, plus or minus, of our renters in Ojai are rent burdened. That's almost 600 households. When this project gets developed and finished, there will be 49 less. So now we'll only have 551 rent burdened people in the city. There's a huge need. Let's see, what else did I write here? Regarding the approval process, it appears that it meets the state law guidelines for ministerial approval. I certainly support that. However, we've already had, this is the second public hearing we've had with opportunity for the public to understand it, which meets, to me, the public planning commission processes. I believe that there's no sight line problems with the 3 stories. It's in the East End, folks. If you go to Whispering Oaks, they have a main building that appears to be 3 stories high, but it's only 2. It's huge. And then there are the single-story bungalows in rows of 6 or 7. So I don't think the site problem, I certainly support 3 stories. It's effective. I'm the last one, so let me ask it a little more time, please. It's effective, it's efficient to provide this many 49 units plus a manager's unit on 2 acres. Incidentally, just before I found out that Cabrillo had bought it, Nick Ojai and I were trying to reactivate the senior one, and then we found out that you guys had bought it. Okay. So I fully support the proposal with its 3 stories, its expanded bicycle placement areas, and I support the city contributing public access infrastructure. This is in addition to what Larry was saying. Public access infrastructure along Bryant Street, which means curbs and sidewalks, gutters, to Ojai Avenue, and also to the bike trail, so that and the city pays for it. The city should be really pleased that it's getting a 50 unit, we haven't had anything in 33 years or 30 years, 50 unit low income and very low income affordable rental housing. This need is huge, and our city, which has a budget now of $15 million, gets close to $6 million from TOT. Should put some money into it.
Thank you, Bill.
Let's see. So I'm all in favor of this.
Yeah.
It's great. I'm glad they're here.
Thank you, Bill.
And let's have the next person speak.
Appreciate it. All right, any other public comment? No? All right, open it up for discussion.
Well, I am very interested in seeing some follow-up to the City Development Block Grant. And if Cabrillo has experience with this that they could bring to the city, I think that the city should take advantage of that and make an application, come up with some outside money, and then that would reduce what the city and Cabrillo would have to come up with. And that seems to me to be a really good solution to what is, as Larry said, a problem when we have that many people walking on a road without sidewalks. So let's get together and figure out how to solve that problem.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Area wasn't really made for residential.
No, it wasn't.
I share your thoughts. I think Larry very succinctly put the issue, and that is, and John just mentioned it, it wasn't designed for residential.
No.
It's an
industrial park.
It's an industrial park, and we have protected it as an industrial park to bring jobs, because in addition to housing shortage, we have a job shortage. Right. So having said that, this comes with that exception, and meaning the infrastructure, lack of infrastructure, as close to, I don't know, a perfect project as one could hope for. And you know, we've been actually blessed by having good developers who are doing things which are consistent with our overall planning and our needs as a community. And so, you know, if this is the time to, in the discussions, you know, wrap it up, I'm ready to vote. And
Well, let's hear, Mr. Quillisi, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yes, one last thought, and I've pondered this over the 2 weeks since the last meeting, because like Larry Steingold, I walk around this area a lot. I don't bicycle around the area, but I do walk, and I use the trail. Now, if we could go back to or if you can envision an overhead shot of the property, the end of the bike trail at Bryant Street, not counting extensions out to Seoul, hits Bryant Street just south of the driveway for this project, I believe. And I know if I were there and I were planning to go downtown, I would jog south a few feet. I'm sure it's less than 50 or 100 feet. And I would go down the bike trail to maybe Fulton, Fulton has more sidewalk. Fox Street has very little sidewalk. Montgomery has very little sidewalk, but some. And all of those are ways to get to the downtown area that don't involve messing with Bryant Street per se. It does put a premium on putting some light on the bike path. And I don't know if that's a city responsibility. I understand the county is responsible for maintaining the bike path, but whether that extends to lighting or not is certainly arguable. But as I have thought about it for the last 2 weeks, it seems to me the best way to get to any of the retail, restaurants, the arcade, grocery stores, whatever, in the downtown area from this project would be to go down the bike path.
Yeah.
Not to go up Bryant Street and then along Ojai Avenue. And it seems to me that would be a much less expensive way to provide access from the project to the downtown area. So that's my thoughts. Otherwise, I think it's a fine project. I'm ready to vote for it.
Anybody have thoughts around the emergency access considerations?
Yeah, that the flag of the flag lot, I'm sorry, the pole of the flag lot is a 2-lane road, basically.
Yeah.
Whether that's sufficient is something that traffic engineers or the fire department or somebody would have to figure out.
Okay.
It's my understanding from what we've heard in the last couple of meetings that road meets state code and requirements. Is that correct?
Yeah, the applicants identified through Ventura County that they've met that standard. They still have to go through that process through building, and then us get that verification from fire department, which would be, we typically get a letter formalizing.
So it would be nice,
Confirming
but
that.
not required.
Not required at
If
this
we can
stage.
get Condor to open up an access lane in an emergency.
And again, that's really up to fire department to make that determination through their standards.
And that's already a condition that we have.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You know, I hate to bring this up, but Chair Quillisi, the thought of using a bike path as a pedestrian way, if you're a bicycle rider, there's nothing more terrifying than riding down a bicycle path and seeing a family of 4 all hand in hand walking down to the park.
Especially if it's an electric bike.
Right. If you've got an electric bike, you're speeding
Agreed.
along. And bike paths should...
Problem we already have all along the bike path.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, I think we need more infrastructure. I don't think putting pedestrians onto a bike path is really it's a way of doing it, but I'm not sure it's an optimal way.
But they do use that bike path. Pedestrians
Yes, I
do
know.
use, so.
I use
And
it.
having ridden a
Yeah.
bicycle on that bike path, it's, having pedestrians and
To
bicyclists in the
negotiate
same
that.
place are a challenge.
Can
I
we open
probably
it up
shouldn't have
for-
called it a bike path. It's officially the Ojai Valley Trail. But
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I walk it a lot.
So we'll hold our discussion, open it up for
Okay.
public comment one more time. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. One is that the county is starting the process of completely, well, I don't know about completely, I don't know how deeply they're planning to do it, but they are doing upkeep and renovations on the bike path from all the way through Ojai. So we can talk, I think it would be advantageous to speak with them to see if while they are doing this, there might be some way to combine the process of potentially putting in some sort of infrastructure. And the second thing I just wanted to point out is that the second phase of the ATP really is about having bike lanes down Ojai Ave. And we are very cognizant of the fact that with bikes and people on the same pathways, given electric bikes, it's tricky. So the city council, as we move forward, is really cognizant of that all the way, whether with or without this project. We know that electric bikes going 35 miles an hour is tricky when you're sharing space with pedestrians. So we're already aware of that, and I think that this would bring it to our attention as well. So I'm sure the mayor can speak to that as well. She's been working on the ATP for way longer than I have. But I think it would behoove us to speak to the county just to see if they're going to start moving forward, if they can potentially do some stuff on the bike path, considering the new project.
Right, okay, thank you. All right. Open it back up for discussion.
You have public comment open. I do have a raised hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do the online. I apologize, thank you. Go ahead. We do have one raised hand. And is that Renee?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Renee.
Hello. I really appreciate the level of questions and the details you're getting into at the meeting tonight. And I appreciate all the focus on the bike trail. After your last meeting on this project, I went onto the Ojai Valley Trail, where the pathway is right next to the Humane Society. And you take that Humane Society loop next to the storage facility. It goes behind the storage facility, and there is, I think he just said it on his slide, 23 feet of shared property that is right next to the bike path or the Ojai Valley Trail.
Mhm.
And I keep thinking of having an access point for bicyclists and pedestrians to be able to get out and quickly go to Topa Topa School without having to go down to Bryant Street. I know you can always go along the flagpole and go back around by the Humane Society, but if there was a ramp that was adjacent to the property that could allow people to get up to the bike path, it might also help the county to do better improvements along that area, especially if it is going to be connected with Soul Park at some point. I'm sure the families would love to be able to have access to that nice big park over there. So I'm just thinking, how can we get better access for bicyclists and pedestrians to be able to not get into that entry and exit point and Bryant Street traffic jam, and still connect them with the nature and being outdoors. And unfortunately, Whispering Oaks does not have the connection. And they are right next to the property, but they have no connection to the pathway.
Right.
And this is going to be young families and young people who are going to have quick, easy access. We want them to ride the bikes up to Topa Topa School. So anyway, that's just another idea that might help relieve some of the traffic burden for the bicyclists. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Okay, anyone else? No? Okay, we'll go back to discussion. So what do you guys think about that access?
I don't know how you fix it. I mean, I hear it, but,
Putting a ramp on the back side of the property? Because there's gonna be a 8-foot drop.
Well, there's an 8-foot drop
You could put stairs, or you could put a
to the,
ramp.
to the Whispering Oaks property, but is
Yeah,
there,
a condor?
is there a drop to get to the bike path from the south end of the project?
I don't know, we can ask the applicant.
Good question.
Question for the applicant?
Yeah, good question for the applicant. What does that 7 feet, 7 inches translate to at the far southeast corner of the property?
Near Condor storage, near where
Yeah.
Sure.
that walking path is.
By recollection, I
No.
think we're about 6 feet at that corner in
6 feet?
difference. What makes the site access difficult is twofold. One is that there is an existing access point from Condor Storage onto the pole of the flag lot. And we have to maintain that access, and that's sort of the starting point for really the grading of the rest of the site. From there, we have to get ADA access, and ADA access, Title 24, is very strict. So we don't have a lot of leeway from that point into the site or back down to Bryant. And unfortunately, in order to get to our buildings, in order for the parking lots to be compliant, that's what depresses us about 6 feet.
Right,
At the back corner, that we're about 6 feet lower than the adjacent properties.
okay.
Finish grade on the property is going to be level then?
Level-ish, sure. The largest building that sits along the Condor mini storage has 3 steps in the foundation. So we are trying to work as much as we can with the existing grade. Parking lot grades will vary between 1.5 in the accessible portions to as much as 5% in the non-accessible portions, which is, I call it a door ding territory. It's about where it's uncomfortable to open your door without hitting the car next to you. So that's our confines within the parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And then, just a question for staff on page 3 of the administrative report. I know you talked about this. This was number 2, related to SB 649. I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on that. The last sentence says, "The city may exercise its police power to preserve the public welfare and subject this project to local workforce occupancy preference." I was wondering what that means.
So there's a difference between development standards
Yeah.
and the business regulations
Right.
in the code. They might both be located within Title 20, but it doesn't mean that they're the same thing. So with respect to the development standards, those are gonna be frozen in time as of the date of their application. So those can't change.
Right.
Same thing with the building code standards, those won't be changing. But use standards can change, and use standards can be applied to a project, that's been built in the past as well as going forward. So like having an anti-smoking ordinance, for
Right.
example.
Okay.
That's a use standard. These are all business use standards.
Right.
And this is a multifamily residential structure that is also for rent, so it's a business.
Okay, so that would be something that, my question is, would that be something that that we would do at the planning commission level, or would that be city council?
I thought the city council is considering this right now.
Yeah, they are.
It is a city council matter, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure this is all part of the same thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
and really what it boiled down to, and it's the reason why we put it in here, you had asked the question.
Yes.
And at that time, it wasn't going to city council, but in that moment, it transitioned to that matter suddenly showing up on city council.
Perfect.
So.
Okay, good, awesome, all right, I just want to make sure that's there. Okay, cool. All right, any other discussion?
I am, I am ready to move approval of this project. My problem is that I would like to encourage, as I said before, the cooperation between the CEDC and the city to apply for a grant, to work with Condor. I mean, there are just a few things that I know you plan to do this, but I don't know if it needs to be put into our recommendation or
Get a condition.
not. Yeah.
If you're so led, you could have that as a condition. I just want to be careful. It's working with
Two other groups that may or may not be
right.
receptive.
So it needs to have some squishy language versus the shalls and this has to
You're
be.
exactly.
Right. And I think that would be appropriate because that would then allow for kind of the hand holding and the working with other groups to try to see what sort of money's out there in those avenues.
May I recommend some language?
Oh, I would love that.
Maybe the language can read something like, the applicant shall work with the city to secure grant funding for infrastructural offsite improvements.
Did somebody get that written down?
The applicant shall
for you.
work with the city.
I want to make sure that the language is a little bit more squishier than that. It sounds like we have an obligation to work with them and that it has to be done. At some point, it may not be able to be done.
I think the shall is only applying to them working with us. It doesn't guarantee an outcome. So we can turn to the applicant. If the applicant's okay with that language, it's only requiring that, again, we work together.
Could I ask come up here to the, I would ask the question, have you done this in the past? And if you have, to what success rate in terms of, like even a dollar amount? Has there been an example? I know we're talking about hypotheticals if there is, because I mean, I have no problem if this body conditions that and then when we go to city council, they reassure it or agree with it as well, then certainly staff can start working with you in terms of looking into
My
that further.
suggestion would be more the parties, so it'd be the city and the applicant shall work together to try to secure CDBG and our other grant funding for, so that it's a, the condition goes to both. And then we've got to work together, we try to get the money. Victoria can talk about some of the CDBG monies that Cabrillo's been able to access for other things.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, Lucas, your word of explore, I think is really important here, because exploring the funding opportunities that are out there, because as you said, there's no guarantee that there's funding in any given round or cycle, even with the local county funds. I mean, they're going to be releasing their NOFA next month for the new funds coming up in the next year. So it's never a guarantee. So I think exploring financing opportunities would be more beneficial. As far as our experience, we've secured about $600,000 over the course of the past 18 months in just CDBG funds for other projects on our properties. So it is something we do fairly regularly.
That's encouraging.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, that does include our property in Ojai.
Oh,
We actually did a CDBG grant for that property too.
very cool.
Can we add the word prioritize? Explore and prioritize. The reason being that both the city and the applicant here have other uses for grants that they could potentially get. And
I like the language request to prioritize versus just immediately prioritize, because then that's assuming moving forward that this becomes the most important piece moving forward. And that then would need to be affirmed by city council as well.
All right.
Has anybody got this language
I got it.
I've been-
figured out? Yeah, I got a lot of notes.
You took some notes?
I've been
Good.
trying, yeah.
Okay.
I'll give it a shot. The applicant and the city shall explore financing opportunities from federal, state, and local sources for off-site infrastructural improvements. Does that capture the intent?
Except the prioritization of it, meaning.
Do we have to outline what those improvements are?
If you'd like, you can specify what improvements you're contemplating,
I mean,
such
yes,
as,
sidewalk,
Well, yeah, sidewalks
Lighting.
going north or sidewalks going south, access to the bike trail.
Lighting on the bike
I mean, can't,
Yeah.
can't we
Lighting
just?
is,
and then I would love to explore, and I know this is a stretch, but a signal at Ojai Avenue. I know that's Caltrans, I know.
Oh, don't.
I have some concerns with that one, just to be fair, because it's
gonna
Our
be a
traffic
traffic
volume
nightmare.
there is not high enough for them to,
300
Justify it.
300 cars turning left every day?
well, that,
remember it's
MTA.
it's not an LOS, it's a VMT
It's a
piece, and
VMT.
once you get into the VMT,
VMT.
Scratch that,
VMT,
scratch that.
it-
very low.
All right, all right.
Maybe if you
Scratch
put the
that.
lighting on the bike trail,
so,
and if you wanna add that in, I think that's probably, oh, I'm sorry. I say, if you wanna make a list of things, I think putting the lighting on the bike trail, or whatever they call it, the trail.
Do you think that there is an opportunity for CDBG Community Development Block Grant money along the bike trail? I know it's maintained. We have a portion
Yeah.
within Libby Park that we maintain, but everything else beyond that is maintained by the county.
Well,
So it's interesting that we would be exploring that option because it's really county and that would be county money potentially.
We'd
So it
have
sounds
to-
like they're just
But-
taking money out of one pocket and putting it into
well,
another.
that's a lot of what goes on in government, you know? The idea is that, you know, exploring means, okay, you think
Talk to
outside of the box, you try to be a little creative. And so what I think we're trying to put here is the list of priorities. You know, even with some of the changing laws, you know, there's certain pots of money for certain things, which depending on what happens, you know, that might be a potential. Like now, I mean, bikes are a big deal, okay? The state is starting to recognize bikes are important. So things things that maybe it's not on Ojai having a bike lane, but what we're trying to do in the state is we're trying to get more people out of their cars onto bikes. So, I mean, in terms of if you can get more activity in the bike path, that might be something that will appeal to somebody, you know, that's deciding funding. So my suggestion would be you pick what your priorities are for this project, but be realistic. I mean, a traffic signal is just not realistic. You know, there's just no way on God's earth you get a traffic signal there, much less having it with a state, you know, road. So pick the things that you would like to see that are potentially something that you could do. And I think we heard some good suggestions tonight. And so if you put those all on the list, and then, you know, you never know who you're going to be dealing with at the county in terms of everybody's got their pet interests, right? So you have a few out there and maybe one of them hits. And it depends. You know, one thing about the county, they get money in, they got to see money go out the door. And so if there are potential projects and you're in the line and somebody else didn't try to come up for one, maybe yours wouldn't be the best, but if it's up there on the list, you might just get some money. So you can't get anything without asking or trying, and I think that's what we're trying to do. And, you know, God willing, we'll be lucky.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can give it another try.
Yeah.
if you'd
Oh,
like.
good.
Yeah, let's do it.
The applicant and city shall explore financing opportunities from federal, state, and local sources for off-site infrastructural improvements with priority given to improvements such as sidewalks, access, lighting, and bike paths.
I love
I
it.
think you need to add county in there.
I put
Because
federal, state, and local, including
state, and
county.
local.
Local covers
Includes
county.
Okay. I
Okay.
like that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Motion?
Okay, I I will move to accept the recommendation, the resolution, accept the resolution of the Planning Commission to the City of Ojai recommending approval of this project with the condition as stated by Alex.
And
Does that work?
As amended.
And I would also add, as amended by staff during my presentation, which
Oh, yes, the
spoke
other-
about
the
a
other
couple
amendments.
of those
Yes.
conditions
Yes,
that I'd
yes.
mentioned.
Vision to.
I
yeah,
would
number
also
12.
like to add that they're going to work with Condor to explore the possibility of an emergency access.
Okay, so that's a
Well,
that's
that's
a
an
condition-
actual-
that's a
One,
di-
it's
that's
a separate condition.
that's a separate condition.
Yes.
I'm okay with that, but Alex, does your proposal mention that? Because you did mention access in there.
No, it doesn't, because
Okay, okay,
this
that's-
only, the first one only
Add
talks
that.
about funding sources, so this would be a
Second
different
one.
condition, yes.
Okay, yeah, okay, so that'd be 2. And then the 3 would be the additions, changes that Lucas had in here,
Correct.
Yeah.
Those are really
the minor changes.
minor changes,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they were expressly written or
Yes. Okay,
spoken
so
into the
3
record.
3 conditions.
With those
Com-
three
Commissioner
conditions.
Murphy, what was that last condition that you'd introduced?
Working with Condor on the possibility of an emergency access point.
Something like explore the possibility.
Yeah.
I want to make sure this is squishy language
It-
because really
yes.
it boils down to
Because without Condor agreeing to it, we're nowhere, so.
yeah.
Right.
There's a couple of sources out there that they don't have control over.
Okay, any discussion?
I'll second that motion.
Oh, we got 2 seconds. All right.
Steve,
I don't know, I'll take Steve's, just
Yeah, take
because
Steve's.
he's in virtual land. There might be a time delay, you don't know. Okay, so we got a motion. Sherry, can we get a roll call?
Trent,
Yes?
Bennett,
yes?
Murphy,
Yes.
Quillisi.
Yes.
All right,
All right.
good to go. Recommendation passes. Okay, good deal. So moving on to the next piece. Where are we at? Let's see.
You might give the audience a minute to.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item on the agenda,
Is future agenda items.
future agenda items.
All
Planning
right,
Commission
let's talk
tentative
about
agendas.
future-
So we have a meeting on the 6th, and we have a meeting on the 20th. The meeting on the 6th, we're seeing a concept review for a proposed new industrial building in the M1 zoning, which is 220 Bryant Street. That concept review is definitely going to be coming forward. I'm currently finalizing the staff report and working with staff on that right now. So
Interesting. And that's at 220 Bryant Street.
220, yes.
Right.
So
What's at 220 right now?
it's vacant.
It's vacant, okay.
Is that the
It is.
parcel that has
Yep.
come before us before?
Mhm. It
See, I
is.
didn't
Yes, it
mention it.
is. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I don't want to get too much into detail on it. We'll talk about it when it comes on the 6th. The other one is a tiny home ordinance update. And really, just to give you the skinny on that, the tiny home ordinance had a 2-year sunset clause, and that is coming up. So we're looking at taking a more robust look at the tiny home provisions. That's already been to City Council. They've given us some direction. We're going to come forward with a draft ordinance and then have that discussion as a part of the process because it is within Title 10. It comes
Yeah.
before this body
Yeah, yeah.
first.
Do we have, 2 tiny homes so far in Ojai?
I look forward to having that discussion when this item comes forward.
Okay. I'd like to know where they are so that I can go see them
Yeah.
before we talk.
I don't want to get into the details on how many we have. I can certainly speak to, and you can probably look at one of the staff reports that I've written on it. We've had several that have come in, and then I don't want to necessarily get into any more detail on that.
Okay, so in other words, you'll have information in the
Yes, the
staff
report will give
that
us
we
more
will
in
be
depth
able to go.
on it, as
Okay.
well as the reasons and rationale for some of those changes.
Okay.
Right, where it's coming from, the sources and whatnot.
Perfect.
So for December 20th, And then obviously, so we'll start back up with the housing element program prioritization. We'll certainly start having those. I'll be asking for the subcommittee to be a part of that again. So we'll be ramping that back up again for the 6th, the meeting on the 6th and the meeting on the 20th.
And is that with our, that'd be with our group here in the planning commission that's.
Correct.
the house? Oh, perfect.
Correct.
That's
We
us.
can do that.
Yeah.
We know who that is. For the 20th, we have 2 design review permits. One is a new detached 2-story ADU at 311 Park Road, and the other one is a 2-story addition at 704 Daly Road.
Okay.
So
Oh, daily. All right.
I've just started looking at those, so I don't have a whole lot of information on
Yeah,
those, but we're working on. So I would say those are question marks at this point, but the likelihood of it reaching the 20th is pretty good.
Okay. And a 2-story ADU. Interesting. All right.
Okay.
Cool.
And the Ojai Mountain Farm development, that's the bowling alley?
Yes.
It's the old bowling alley site, yes. That's a
Getting
pending
closer?
one. We are so close.
Really?
I keep saying that every time we talk. You know, it's interesting because every time I get an update, it's like, we're really close. I'm like, all right. The same thing is true with 1440 Daly. It's a tricky site. This body has seen it before, but about 4 years ago, and it's under new ownership. So
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for that. And then I guess we're up to director's report.
yes,
All right.
there's nothing here. Nothing really to report directly. So
Nothing? Okay.
it's just
All right.
business as usual for community development.
And we have no commission member reports, so county liaison, Betsy? City council liaison, I apologize.
Whatever. Well, I just want to thank the planning commissioner, Commissioner Bennett, Commissioner Trent, Commissioner Murphy, Chair Quilisi for another thoughtful discussion. Much appreciated, and thank you, staff, for all the details and the legwork. And thank you, Cabrillo, for coming forward, and it's a really beautiful model of collaboration and teamwork and working together, and look forward to talking about it at City Council. So thank you very much for working so hard for our community and massaging the squishy language like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
And 7:30, wow.
I know.
Way to go.
That's amazing.
What's your secret?
I know, right?
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we'll adjourn the council meeting at 7:35.
The commission meeting.
Commission, sorry. What did I say? What did I say? Council. Oh, sorry, commission.
You just gave us a.